Well, we are back for the first of two episodes of Championship predictions this week. It's a very strange one, which has been sort of cut in half due to the FA Cup fourth round and Championship teams participating. So we're going to cover the three games across Tuesday and Wednesday tonight in part one of Matchweek 31. And then on Thursday, we will be back to cover the five games taking place this weekend in part two of Matchweek 31 before returning on Sunday for the full midweek edition next week. So we're going to do our recap of Matchweek 30 after the Monday Night Football of Borough Sunderland. That will be in the next episode. Today, the focus is just on previewing and predicting three big matches across Tuesday and Wednesday night. As always, I'll encourage you to do exactly the same in the comments below. If you beat or match my overall score, 3 points for a perfect score, 1 for the correct outcome, then you will get a shout out in that recap as well when we look ahead to the second part of Matchweek 31 on Thursday. For now though, let's crack on with the first game on Tuesday night, and it is a big one for a certain side up in that promotion race because it is Burnley versus Oxford United. Burnley, as we've discussed, just an exemplary defensive record this season. 4 clean sheets in a row now in all competitions, more than that in the Championship. 9 goals conceded in 30 games is outstanding. But is it going to be a case of one or two too many draws? Another 0-0 for the third time in 4 matches, this time away at Portsmouth at the weekend. And while you could argue the ones at home to Sunderland and Leeds in and around them are very good ones, dropping points against sides in a relegation battle and not really, again, showing any sort of consistency in front of goal is perhaps going to become a bit of a problem. Now, the positive for Burnley, they had a lot more chances in this game. They probably had one they should have scored from. They had shots on target. They had a lot more of the ball. However, they did concede a fair few in this game as well. And in the end, it could have been a very different story if either team had taken their chances. So Burnley not looking quite as convincing or as controlling as last time they were in the Championship. But you have to say that Scott Parker has built an incredibly robust and solid side that perhaps aren't the best to watch or the easiest on the eye. But maybe that will be enough to get them over the line, being defensively rock solid. On this occasion, though, they come up against an Oxford United side who are still unbeaten in the league under Gary Rowett, and now 10 points clear of the relegation zone and arguably looking up at the playoffs, which is a closer stretch at the moment than looking down over their shoulder. They drew 1-1 at home to Bristol City in what was actually probably one of their most frustrating games so far. They were a man up at half-time and took the lead just before the hour mark, before being pegged back, before Bristol City went down to 9, but weren't able to find a way through. So it was frustrating for Oxford, but if you'd have said to them at the start of the season, you're going to be devastated you've drawn at home to Bristol City in a 6-game unbeaten run under a new manager, I don't think they'd be too upset. They had bundles of the ball, bundles of chances, and actually, you could argue Bristol City getting that first half red card maybe hindered Oxford slightly because they weren't able to create that space in behind. They didn't get that space sort of 25, 30 yards out. We've talked a lot about them having players with those moments of magic in them. And they weren't able to find those spaces because Bristol City was sort of forced to sit deep behind the ball and defend for their lives, which they've done well on a few occasions this year. And in the end, a 1-1 draw, while frustrating, preserves a brilliant run for Oxford, where we look at them since Gary Rowett's come in, who, after the surprise sacking of Des Buckingham, has been an absolute revelation. We said it at the time, is the best appointment they possibly could have got, is a brilliant Championship manager and has proven so over a number of years. And boy, is he doing the job. They're nowhere near danger now. They've just got to get through the last couple of days of the window without any massive outgoings. And Oxford look like they're going to have a very comfortable year. It makes this game hard to predict because a lot of you will be going for a draw. Can Oxford frustrate Burnley? Can they do what Bristol City did to them? Or will Burnley finally find a way through? I think we can probably predict a Burnley clean sheet because even if it doesn't happen, it has happened in over 2/3 of the games this year, so it's a safe prediction. But I am going to make the mistake again of going for Burnley to find the goal. And this time, I'm not going to go for it to be convincing. I'm going to go for Burnley to beat Oxford by 1-0. As we move on to the other game on Tuesday night, which is a big battle for a side in the playoff race. Or could it be two? It will be if QPR find a way to beat Blackburn Rovers. They sit in mid-table at the moment after back-to-back defeats, a frustrating one away at Millwall after that home defeat against Sheffield Wednesday. And again, it was a very bonkers start to this game. Millwall scored in the first minute. QPR scored virtually straight away after. But we go back to the same old story. QPR had double the amount of shots, more on target, all of the best chances in the match, and they just haven't got that consistency in front of goal. I go back to what I've said probably for 4 or 5 weeks now. If QPR could find a top proven championship goal scorer, they'd be playoff contenders and probably strong ones for me. As it stands at the minute, where they're trying to develop younger players, you can see what they're doing for the future. But I think it will just hold them back slightly this year. It's a far cry from last season where they were battling at the bottom all year. They stuck with Cifuentes, he's got them through it, and they're now comfortable in mid-table. I just don't know if they've got that consistency going forward to be a contender for the top six. For Blackburn, on the flip side of that, a really important win in the Lancashire derby on Friday night, a decent game as well. Yes, they gave up a goal late on, but it was a game where they had to turn up, and they did. It wasn't a game of bundles of chances. The ones that were created were good, but it was a lot of pop shots from distance, half chances, only really a couple of great ones for each side. Blackburn did what they do best. They gave up possession, they gave up control of the game and hit on the counter-attack. But defensively, they were a little bit more astute for the most part. And we know they've got players that can be a threat to anyone on the break. The battle from fifth down is so tight in the Championship. I actually think from the top four down, it's a pretty poor league compared to previous seasons and some of those teams in the middle. But Blackburn under John Eustace, a lot of people expected them to be near the bottom. And even though they're coming out of what has been a pretty sticky run recently, they are still up in fifth place and doing a magnificent job. He deserves massive credit for the job he's done there. He's working fantastically under restrained circumstances, and it makes this game very hard to call. However, Blackburn's away form has not been good recently. They lost at Bristol City, they lost at Oxford. They haven't had as much of a goal threat on the road in recent weeks either. And QPR, it's a case of the unpredictable. Will they turn up and score a couple of goals? Will they just miss 10 chances again? I'm going to bank on QPR to respond. It's another one of those. Blackburn won at the weekend, QPR won the last two. People will be assuming an away win's coming or a draw. I'm going to go for QPR to nick it. I'm going to go by 2-1. And then we move on to the third one. A big game on Wednesday night featuring the table toppers and one of the form teams in the division at the moment. It is Coventry City versus Leeds United. Both sides had a very good weekend. Let's start with Leeds, who beat Cardiff 7-0. We've said Leeds have threatened to do this a few times at home this season. They've dominated games. They've been brilliant, but they've just not put their chances away at times. On this occasion, everything went in. It was incredibly dominant. Cardiff were appalling, but Leeds can only beat what was put in front of them. They carved them open, created chances at will, nearly 30 shots on goal in double figures for on target. They were just fantastic. It's a Leeds side that at their best should be the best in the division. They've scored 60 goals now and they deservedly top the table. But this is going to be a very different game. We've seen them be frustrated on the road a lot this season, and they go away to a Coventry side who have won 4 in a row in the Championship. 3 of those with clean sheets under Frank Lampard, and 2 goals for 2 good attacking players in Sims and Thomas Asante at Swansea, in what was, again, you have to say, a very good performance. It could have been more than 2. They restricted Swansea to next to nothing, which, look, Coventry under Mark Robins this season and previous, always a great threat on the counter, always had goals in them, always created chances. The thing that's impressed me most in recent weeks is that they've been able to stifle the opposition and find that solid defensive base, something that not often has been the case with Coventry or many sides in a Championship. I know Swansea are in dismal form and maybe need to look over their shoulder themselves. We'll get to that in another episode. But Coventry were brilliant. They dominated the game, again gave up possession, knew what sort of game they were going to be playing, and were absolutely ruthless on the counter. So that moves them back into playoff contention, just 3 points away now off 6th place. But this is a very different test when it comes to, can you find a solid defensive base against a side who's going to dominate a game and possession? Now, I think it'll be a similar setup to what they did against Swansea. Whether or not they can restrict Leeds, it's pretty hard to predict, isn't it? The way Leeds have been on the road this season. 5 clean sheets in a row for them in all competitions, 4 in a Championship. Coventry have conceded 1 in their last 4. I just think this is going to break the trend of being an entertaining game, but I don't know why. Everything about it is telling me to go for 1-0 to Leeds United, but I'm going to go for goals. I've got no basis for it. Both defences have been excellent in recent weeks. I'm going to go for Leeds to nick a more entertaining game, and I'm going to go for them to win at Coventry by 2-1. And I'm sure after a few good weeks in a row, this is where you're all going to catch up with me. So with that out the way, let's have a quick recap of our part 1 predictions for match week 31. The 3 games in midweek, we've gone for Burnley to finally score at home to Oxford United for a 1-0 win. I've gone for a surprise, potentially based on recent form, at Loftus Road with QPR to win by 2-1 against Blackburn, and Leeds United to keep pace at the top of the table after the Burnley win on Tuesday with a 2-1 win at informed Coventry City in a game where both defences have been brilliant. I'm going for goals galore. Not an ideal scenario, is it? Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my predictions. Do you think I'm going to get any perfect scores? And most importantly, give me your predictions for this midweek's action. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out on Thursday when we return to look ahead to the 5 remaining weekend fixtures from the EFL Championship. It's a busy week on the channel, as of course we've got a full midweek fixture list to preview on Sunday as well. So if you want to stay up to date and enjoy all of that, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Please do chuck a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and thank you as always for playing along in your numbers. I'm really enjoying this season's predictions, probably because I've won the last few match weeks. But for now, we will be back on Thursday afternoon to look ahead to 5 at the weekend and maybe a surprise at the end of the transfer window. My club loot and a panic buy-in. Let's see if anyone else does. I'll see you next time for part 2 of Match Week 31.